The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training facility as General Marcus Thompson made his routine inspection rounds. His polished boots clicked against the concrete as he walked past rows of soldiers cleaning their weapons. This was supposed to be just another standard visit to evaluate the sniper training program at Fort Braxton. The general had seen it all in his 32 years of military service. He had commanded troops in 3 different wars, earned more medals than he cared to count, and witnessed both extraordinary courage and devastating failure on countless battlefields. Very little surprised him anymore. That was exactly why what happened next would shake him to his core. As he approached the weapons maintenance area, Thompson noticed a young woman sitting cross-legged on the ground. She was methodically cleaning a Barrett M82, a 150 caliber sniper rifle, with the kind of careful attention that spoke of deep respect for the weapon. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a regulation ponytail, and her uniform was spotless despite the fact that she had clearly been working with gun oil and cleaning solvents for hours. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez had been at this task since 4 in the morning. While other soldiers were still sleeping, she was already preparing for another day of training. The Barrett was not just any rifle to her. It was the tool that had saved her life and the lives of countless others during her 3 tours of duty in Afghanistan and Iraq. The general walked past without giving her much thought initially. Female snipers were becoming more common in the military, and he had learned to judge soldiers by their skills rather than their gender. But something made him pause and look back. Perhaps it was the way she handled the massive rifle with such ease, or maybe it was the intensity of her focus. Whatever it was, he found himself walking back toward her position. "Morning, soldier," General Thompson said, his voice carrying the authority that came with decades of command. Maria looked up from her weapon and immediately snapped to attention. "Good morning, sir," she replied, her voice clear and confident despite the early hour. The general's eyes moved from her face to the rifle she had been cleaning, then to her uniform. That was when he saw it. Pinned to her chest, among the standard military decorations, was a small badge that made him stop breathing for a moment. It was a sniper qualification badge, but not just any sniper badge. This one had markings that indicated an achievement so rare that Thompson had only heard rumors about it. The badge indicated a confirmed kill at 3,200 meters. To put this distance in perspective, most sniper rifles are considered effective at ranges between 800 and 1,200 meters. Even the most skilled military snipers rarely attempt shots beyond 2,000 meters due to the incredible number of variables involved. Wind speed, air pressure, temperature, humidity, the rotation of the Earth, and dozens of other factors all combine to make such long-range shots nearly impossible. A 3,200-meter shot was the stuff of legend. General Thompson had been briefed on only 3 confirmed kills at distances exceeding 3,000 meters in the entire history of modern warfare. 2 of those shots had been taken by Canadian snipers in Afghanistan, and 1 by a British sniper in the same region. The idea that this young woman sitting before him had achieved something so extraordinary seemed almost impossible to believe. "Soldier, I need to ask you about that badge," the general said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "Where did you earn that qualification?" Maria's expression remained calm and professional, but Thompson could see something flicker in her eyes. It was not pride or boastfulness, but rather a quiet sadness that spoke of experiences no young person should have to endure. "Helmand Province, Afghanistan, sir. October 15th, 2019, she replied without hesitation. The general knew that date. It had been one of the bloodiest months for coalition forces in that region. Intelligence reports had indicated increased Taliban activity, and several forward operating bases had come under sustained attack. He also knew that any sniper operating in Helmand during that time would have faced some of the most challenging conditions imaginable. "Tell me about the shot," Thompson said, settling into a nearby chair. He had originally planned to complete his inspection and move on to other duties, but something told him this conversation was more important than any paperwork waiting on his desk. Maria took a deep breath before beginning her story. She had told this tale to military investigators and psychiatrists, but she had never shared the full details with anyone who truly understood the technical and emotional complexity of what she had experienced. My team was providing overwatch for a humanitarian convoy delivering medical supplies to a village near the Pakistani border, she began. Intelligence indicated the area was clear, but we had learned not to trust that assessment completely. I was positioned on a ridge approximately 4 kilometers from the convoy route. The general nodded, understanding the tactical situation immediately. Overwatch positions were critical for protecting convoys, but they also put snipers in extremely isolated and vulnerable positions. At approximately 1400 hours, we received radio contact that the convoy was taking heavy fire from multiple positions. I could see muzzle flashes from my position, but the distance was extreme. My spotter calculated the range at 3,200 meters. Thompson felt his jaw tighten. Even for an experienced sniper, attempting a shot at that range would be considered reckless by most military standards. The probability of success was virtually zero, and the risk of revealing their position to enemy forces was enormous. The convoy was pinned down, sir. They had wounded personnel and were taking casualties. Air support was 20 minutes out, and the enemy had positioned themselves in a way that made it impossible for the convoy to retreat or advance. Maria paused, her eyes focusing on something far beyond the walls of the training facility. Thompson recognized that look. He had seen it in the eyes of soldiers who had been forced to make impossible decisions under extreme pressure. I identified the enemy commander directing the attack. He was using a radio and coordinating fire from multiple positions. I knew that if I could eliminate him, it might create enough confusion for the convoy to escape. The technical challenges of such a shot were staggering. At 3,200 meters, a bullet fired from even the most powerful sniper rifle would take several seconds to reach its target. During that time, wind conditions could change, the target could move, and atmospheric pressure variations could alter the bullet's trajectory by several feet. What were the conditions? Thompson asked, his military mind automatically calculating the variables involved. Wind was gusting between 8 and 12 miles per hour from the southwest. Temperature was 42 degrees Celsius. Humidity was low, around 15%. Air pressure was dropping due to an incoming weather system. The general was impressed by her recall of these details. Most soldiers would remember the emotional aspects of such an engagement, but Maria was reciting meteorological data with the precision of a scientist. My spotter ran the calculations 3 times to verify the numbers. We estimated a bullet drop of approximately 37 feet and accounted for wind drift of nearly 14 feet. The mathematical probability of success was less than 5%. Thompson found himself leaning forward in his chair. The technical aspects of the shot were fascinating, but he was beginning to understand that this story was about much more than marksmanship. I had to make a decision, sir. I could wait for air support and hope the convoy could hold out, or I could attempt a shot that had very little chance of success, but might save lives immediately. This was the moment that separated true military leaders from ordinary soldiers. Under extreme pressure, with lives hanging in the balance, Maria had been forced to make a choice that would haunt her regardless of the outcome. I took the shot. The simple statement carried the weight of enormous responsibility. Thompson knew that in the seconds between deciding to fire and pulling the trigger, Maria would have been acutely aware that she was attempting something that bordered on the impossible. The bullet flight time was approximately 4.3 seconds. During that time, I watched through my scope as enemy fire continued to hit the convoy. I could see soldiers taking cover behind vehicles, and I knew that wounded personnel were bleeding while waiting for medical evacuation. The psychological pressure of those few seconds would have been crushing. Maria was essentially watching a slow-motion disaster unfold while her bullet traveled through the air, knowing that she had committed to a course of action that might accomplish nothing while potentially revealing her team's position to enemy forces. Impact was confirmed at 14:07 hours. The target was eliminated, and enemy fire decreased significantly within 30 seconds. The convoy was able to execute a tactical withdrawal and reached safety approximately 10 minutes later. General Thompson sat back in his chair, processing what he had just heard. The technical achievement was remarkable enough, but the courage required to attempt such a shot under those circumstances was extraordinary. How many lives were saved? He asked quietly. 12 members of the convoy crew, plus an unknown number of civilians who were with the humanitarian aid workers, Maria replied. 3 Afghan children were among the wounded who were successfully evacuated. The general understood now why Maria carried that quiet sadness in her eyes. She had taken a human life at an extraordinary distance, and, while that action had saved many others, it still carried an emotional weight that would never completely disappear. The shot was investigated and confirmed by multiple independent sources, she continued. Ballistics analysis verified the distance and trajectory. The elimination was deemed tactically necessary and ethically justified under the rules of engagement. Thompson nodded. He knew that any shot at such extreme range would have been subject to intense scrutiny. The military took great care to ensure that all sniper engagements were legally and morally justified, particularly when they involved extraordinary circumstances. The badge was awarded 6 months later after a complete review of all evidence and witness testimony, Maria concluded. I was also recommended for additional decorations, but I requested that the qualification badge be the only recognition. The general found this last detail particularly telling. Many soldiers sought recognition and awards, but Maria had specifically requested minimal acknowledgement for an achievement that deserved the highest honors. Why did you limit the recognition? Thompson asked. Maria was quiet for a long moment before answering. Because I do not want to be known as someone who killed a person from a great distance, sir. I want to be known as someone who saved lives when it mattered most. The general felt a profound respect for the young woman sitting before him. In an age when many people sought fame and attention for far lesser achievements, Maria had demonstrated the kind of humility and character that made the military strong. How has this experience affected your service? He asked. I continue to serve as a sniper instructor and am currently developing new training protocols for extreme-range engagements, she replied. The techniques and lessons learned from that day are being incorporated into our advanced training programs. Thompson realized that Maria was not just a remarkable marksman, but also someone who was using her experience to improve the capabilities of future soldiers. This was exactly the kind of leadership and dedication that the military needed to maintain its effectiveness. General Thompson found himself returning to the training facility 3 days later, ostensibly to review equipment requisitions, but actually hoping to continue his conversation with Staff Sergeant Rodriguez. He had spent the intervening time researching her military record and was astounded by what he discovered. Maria's personnel file read like a collection of extraordinary achievements wrapped in the humble language of military bureaucracy. Before the legendary 3,200-meter shot, she had already established herself as one of the most effective snipers in active service. Her previous confirmed eliminations ranged from 800 to 2,400 meters, with a success rate that was nearly unprecedented in modern military history. What struck Thompson most was not just her marksmanship skills, but the circumstances surrounding each engagement. Every shot Maria had taken was in defense of other personnel or to prevent civilian casualties. She had never used her skills for anything other than protecting lives and completing humanitarian missions. When he found Maria that morning, she was working with a group of young recruits on the rifle range. Thompson positioned himself where he could observe her teaching methods without interrupting the training session. What he witnessed was a masterclass in both marksmanship and leadership. The rifle is not just a tool for elimination, Maria was explaining to the recruits. It is an instrument of precision that requires complete understanding of physics, mathematics, and environmental science. Every shot you take carries moral and tactical weight that extends far beyond the immediate target. Thompson watched as she demonstrated the proper breathing techniques for long-range shooting. Her movements were fluid and economical, displaying the kind of muscle memory that came from thousands of hours of practice. But, more importantly, he could see that the recruits were hanging on every word she spoke. At distances beyond 1,000 meters, you are not just shooting at a target, she continued. You are calculating the intersection of multiple mathematical equations while operating under extreme stress. Wind speed, air density, temperature gradients, and even the Coriolis effect from Earth's rotation all become significant factors. One of the recruits raised his hand. Sergeant Rodriguez, is it true that you made a shot from over 3 kilometers away? Maria paused, and Thompson could see her choosing her words carefully. I have engaged targets at extreme ranges when circumstances required it, she replied. But the distance of the shot is far less important than the reason for taking it, and the lives that were protected as a result. This was exactly the kind of response Thompson had hoped to hear. Maria was using her extraordinary experience to teach not just technical skills, but the ethical and moral framework that should guide any military marksman. After the training session ended, Thompson approached Maria as she was securing the training weapons. Impressive instruction, he said. Your recruits are fortunate to learn from someone with your experience. Thank you, sir, Maria replied. I believe that sharing knowledge is one of the most important responsibilities of any experienced soldier. Thompson had prepared several questions about her training methods and background, but he found himself curious about something more personal. How did you become interested in sniper training originally? Maria finished locking the weapon storage cabinet before answering. My father was a police marksman before he joined the military, she said. He taught me to shoot when I was 12 years old, but he always emphasized that accuracy was meaningless without purpose. This background explained much about Maria's approach to her profession. She had learned marksmanship as a tool for protecting others rather than as a sport or hobby. When I enlisted, I initially planned to work in military intelligence, she continued. But during basic training, my shooting scores caught the attention of the sniper school recruiting team. They convinced me that I could make a greater contribution by combining analytical thinking with marksmanship skills. Thompson nodded, understanding how military recruiters identified exceptional talent and guided it toward the most effective applications. The transition to combat operations was challenging, Maria admitted. Nothing in training fully prepares you for the psychological impact of engaging human targets, even when those targets pose an immediate threat to friendly forces. This honesty impressed Thompson. Many soldiers were reluctant to discuss the emotional challenges of combat operations, but Maria seemed willing to address these issues directly. How do you help your students prepare for that psychological challenge? He asked. I focus on situational awareness and decision-making processes, she replied. Technical shooting skills are only valuable if they are applied with proper judgment and clear understanding of the tactical situation. Thompson realized that Maria was describing a holistic approach to sniper training that went far beyond traditional marksmanship instruction. She was teaching soldiers to think critically about when and how to use their skills. I understand you are developing new training protocols, Thompson said. Can you tell me about that project? Maria's expression became more animated as she discussed her current work. We are creating simulation scenarios that replicate the environmental and psychological conditions of extreme-range engagements, she explained. Traditional training focuses on targets at standard distances under controlled conditions. But combat operations often require shots under circumstances that are far more challenging. Thompson was intrigued by this concept. Military training had always struggled to bridge the gap between controlled practice environments and the chaos of actual combat. The key innovation is incorporating real-time environmental data into the training scenarios, Maria continued. We use weather monitoring equipment to create constantly changing wind and atmospheric conditions. Students must adapt their calculations and techniques continuously rather than memorizing static solutions. This approach made perfect sense to Thompson. Combat operations never provided the luxury of stable, predictable conditions. We also incorporate stress factors that simulate the psychological pressure of actual engagements, she added. Time constraints, simulated friendly forces in danger, and consequences for missed shots all combine to create training scenarios that more accurately reflect combat reality. Thompson could see the value of this training approach, but he was also concerned about the potential psychological impact on students. How do you ensure that this intensive training does not create unnecessary trauma or stress disorders? He asked. We work closely with military psychologists throughout the training process, Maria replied. Students receive counseling and support before, during, and after each simulation exercise. The goal is to prepare them for the realities of combat while protecting their mental health and emotional well-being. This comprehensive approach impressed Thompson. Maria was not just focused on creating better marksmen, but on developing soldiers who could handle the complete spectrum of challenges they would face in combat operations. The most important element of the new training program is ethical decision-making, she continued. Students spend as much time learning about rules of engagement and moral considerations as they do practicing marksmanship techniques. Thompson realized that Maria was addressing one of the most critical challenges facing modern military forces. Technological capabilities had advanced far beyond traditional ethical frameworks, and soldiers needed new tools for making moral decisions in complex situations. "Can you give me an example of how this ethical training works?" he asked. Students are presented with scenarios where they have the technical capability to engage a target, but where the moral and tactical considerations are ambiguous, Maria explained. They must analyze the situation, consider alternatives, and make decisions based on comprehensive evaluation rather than just immediate tactical advantage. This type of training required soldiers to think like philosophers and ethicists while maintaining the quick decision-making abilities necessary for combat effectiveness. "We have found that soldiers who receive this comprehensive training are more confident in their abilities and more resilient when facing difficult situations," she continued. "They understand not just how to take difficult shots, but when those shots are truly necessary." Thompson was beginning to understand that Maria's contribution to military effectiveness went far beyond her individual marksmanship achievements. She was helping to create a new generation of soldiers who combined technical excellence with moral clarity. "I would like to discuss the possibility of expanding this training program to other military installations," Thompson said. "Your approach could benefit sniper training throughout the entire military system." Maria's eyes widened slightly at this suggestion. "That would be an honor, sir. I believe these training methods could help save lives and improve mission effectiveness across all branches of service." Thompson was impressed by her immediate focus on practical benefits rather than personal advancement. This was exactly the kind of thinking that made exceptional soldiers into effective leaders. There would be significant challenges involved in such an expansion, he warned. You would need to train other instructors, develop standardized curricula, and adapt the program for different military specialties and environments. "I understand the complexities, sir," Maria replied. But 6 months after their first meeting, General Thompson stood in a conference room at the Pentagon, watching as Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez presented her revolutionary training program to a panel of military officials from all branches of the armed forces. The transformation of their chance encounter into a major military initiative had exceeded even his most optimistic expectations. Maria's presentation combined technical precision with compelling storytelling in a way that held the attention of even the most skeptical audience members. She began by describing the current limitations of traditional sniper training and then demonstrated how her new methods addressed each shortcoming systematically. Traditional sniper training focuses primarily on marksmanship accuracy under controlled conditions, she explained to the assembled officials. Students learn to hit targets at various distances, but they receive limited preparation for the complex decision-making challenges they will face in actual combat operations. The presentation screen showed statistics comparing success rates between traditionally trained snipers and those who had completed Maria's enhanced program. The differences were dramatic. Students who received the comprehensive training showed significantly higher mission success rates and substantially lower incidence of tactical errors under pressure. The key innovation is integration of psychological preparation with technical training, Maria continued. Students do not just learn how to make difficult shots. They learn how to analyze complex situations, make ethical decisions under extreme stress, and adapt their tactics to changing battlefield conditions. General Thompson watched the faces of the reviewing officials as Maria described specific training scenarios. He could see their interest growing as they understood the practical applications of her methods. One of the panel members, Admiral Sarah Chun from the Navy, raised her hand with a question. "Sergeant Rodriguez, how do you measure the effectiveness of the psychological preparation components of your training?" Maria had clearly anticipated this question. "We use a combination of simulation performance metrics and follow-up evaluation of graduates in actual combat operations," she replied. "Students who complete the enhanced training show measurably better decision-making under stress, fewer incidents of hesitation during critical moments, and greater confidence in complex tactical situations. The admiral nodded approvingly. Military officials were always impressed by concrete data supporting training innovations. Additionally, Maria continued, we track long-term psychological health outcomes for program graduates. Enhanced training students show lower rates of post-traumatic stress and better adaptation to civilian life after their military service ends. This last point caught the attention of several panel members. Military leadership was increasingly focused on supporting the long-term well-being of service members, and any training program that improved psychological resilience was highly valued. Colonel James Wright from the Air Force asked the next question. What are the resource requirements for implementing this training program on a larger scale? Maria had spent weeks preparing detailed cost and resource analyses with Thompson's guidance. Initial implementation requires approximately 40% more training time than traditional programs, she replied. However, graduates require significantly less remedial training and show higher retention rates, which reduces overall personnel costs. She displayed a comprehensive chart showing the cost-benefit analysis over a 5-year period. The enhanced training program required higher initial investment, but generated substantial savings through improved effectiveness and reduced personnel turnover. The most significant resource requirement is instructor training, Maria admitted. Implementing this program effectively requires instructors who understand both advanced marksmanship techniques and psychological preparation methods. We estimate 18 months to train a complete cadre of qualified instructors for system-wide implementation. General Thompson was impressed by Maria's thorough preparation. She had anticipated every practical concern and prepared detailed responses that demonstrated both the value and feasibility of her proposals. The presentation continued with demonstrations of the simulation technology that formed the core of the enhanced training program. Maria showed video recordings of students adapting to changing environmental conditions, making ethical decisions under pressure, and successfully completing complex scenarios that would have been impossible to replicate with traditional training methods. The simulation system allows us to create training scenarios that are both more realistic and more challenging than anything students could experience with conventional methods, she explained. We can replicate specific environmental conditions from actual combat operations, introduce unexpected complications, and measure student responses with precise accuracy. One of the most compelling demonstrations showed students successfully adapting their tactics when presented with scenarios where their initial target selection proved to be incorrect. Traditional training rarely addressed such situations, but Maria's program specifically prepared students to recognize and respond to changing circumstances. The ultimate goal is to produce soldiers who think critically about every engagement rather than simply following predetermined procedures, she concluded. Combat operations are too complex and unpredictable for rigid adherence to standard protocols. When the presentation ended, the panel members spent nearly an hour asking detailed questions about implementation timelines, resource allocation, and performance metrics. Thompson could see that Maria was handling even the most challenging questions with confidence and precision. Admiral Chun was particularly interested in adapting the training methods for naval special operations. Could these techniques be modified for maritime environments and ship-based operations? She asked. Absolutely, Maria replied. The core principles of environmental adaptation and psychological preparation apply to any operational environment. We would need to modify specific simulation scenarios and equipment configurations, but the fundamental training methodology would transfer directly. Colonel Wright asked about integration with existing Air Force sniper training programs. How would you recommend phasing in these new methods without disrupting current operations? Maria had clearly thought about this challenge as well. We would begin with pilot programs at selected training facilities, she suggested. As instructor capacity increases and we refine the methods based on initial results, we can gradually expand implementation to additional locations. The systematic approach she outlined demonstrated both practical wisdom and respect for the complexity of military training operations. After the formal presentation ended, Thompson found himself in a smaller meeting with senior Pentagon officials who were discussing implementation details. The enthusiasm in the room was palpable. This could represent the most significant advancement in military marksmanship training in decades, commented General Patricia Collins, the Army's Chief of Staff for Training. The combination of technical innovation and psychological preparation addresses exactly the kinds of challenges our forces are facing in modern operations. Thompson felt a sense of pride as he listened to the discussion. His chance encounter with Maria Rodriguez was generating benefits that would extend throughout the entire military system. What is your assessment of Sergeant Rodriguez's readiness for increased responsibility? General Collins asked Thompson directly. She is exceptional, Thompson replied without hesitation. Her technical expertise is obvious, but her leadership capabilities and strategic thinking are equally impressive. I believe she could handle significantly expanded responsibilities. The discussion turned to Maria's future career path and the role she might play in implementing the new training programs. Thompson realized that their meeting was likely to change not just military training methods, but Maria's entire future as well. When Maria rejoined the group for the final discussion, General Collins addressed her directly. Sergeant Rodriguez, implementing this training program on the scale we are considering would require substantial organizational and leadership capabilities. Are you prepared for responsibilities that would extend far beyond your current duties? Maria took a moment to consider the question seriously. I am committed to doing whatever is necessary to improve military effectiveness and protect the lives of service members, she replied. If that requires taking on expanded leadership responsibilities, I am prepared to meet those challenges. Thompson could see that Maria understood the magnitude of what was being offered to her. Leading a military-wide training initiative would involve managing hundreds of personnel, coordinating with multiple military branches, and overseeing budgets in the millions of dollars. We would be looking at accelerated promotion and specialized leadership training to prepare you for these responsibilities, General Collins continued. This would be a significant departure from traditional career progression patterns. Maria nodded thoughtfully. I understand that exceptional circumstances require non-traditional approaches, she said. My primary concern is ensuring that the training programs are implemented effectively and provide maximum benefit to the soldiers who will depend on them. Her response demonstrated exactly the kind of priorities and thinking that military leadership valued most. Maria was focused on mission effectiveness rather than personal advancement. The meeting concluded with tentative approval for a large-scale pilot program and authorization to begin developing implementation plans. Maria would work with a team of military training specialists to refine her methods and prepare for broader application. As the officials departed, Thompson found himself alone with Maria in the conference room. Congratulations, he said. You have just achieved something that most people spend entire careers working toward. Maria smiled, but Thompson could see a mixture of excitement and apprehension in her expression. It feels surreal, she admitted. 6 months ago, I was just trying to be the best sniper instructor I could be. Now I am being asked to help reshape military training for the entire armed forces. Thompson understood her feelings completely. Military careers often involved sudden transitions from routine duties to extraordinary responsibilities. The key is to remember that success comes from the same dedication and attention to detail that made you an exceptional sniper, he advised. The scale is different, but the fundamental approach remains the same. Maria nodded, absorbing this guidance. I keep thinking about all the soldiers who will go through this training program, she said. Every improvement we make could mean the difference between life and death for someone in a combat situation. This perspective impressed Thompson more than any technical achievement could have. Maria understood that her work had real consequences for real people, and that understanding would guide her through whatever challenges lay ahead. There will be obstacles and setbacks, Thompson warned. Changing established military procedures is never simple or quick. You will need patience and persistence to see this through. I understand, Maria replied. But I also know that the potential benefits justify whatever effort is required. As they left the Pentagon together, Thompson reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them to this point. A routine inspection had evolved into a major military initiative that would influence training methods for years to come. More importantly, he had discovered that exceptional individuals could still emerge from the most unexpected circumstances and make contributions that exceeded anyone's initial expectations. Maria Rodriguez had proven that dedication, skill, and moral clarity could overcome any obstacle and create opportunities for extraordinary achievement. The story that had begun with a 3,200-meter shot in Afghanistan was continuing to unfold in ways that would benefit thousands of future soldiers and strengthen military effectiveness for generations to come. Thompson knew that he had witnessed something truly special, and he looked forward to seeing where Maria's journey would lead next. For Eli, the potential benefits justify the effort required. If we can help prevent even one incident where a soldier makes a poor decision under pressure, the entire program will have been worthwhile. Thompson found himself thinking about the broader implications of Maria's work. Military effectiveness was ultimately about people making good decisions under extreme pressure. Any training program that improved decision-making capabilities would have applications far beyond sniper operations. I want you to prepare a comprehensive proposal for expanding the training program, he said. Include timeline, resource requirements, personnel needs, and expected outcomes. I will review it with the appropriate planning committees and see what support we can provide. Maria straightened at this opportunity. Yes, sir. I will have a complete proposal ready for your review within 1 week. As their conversation concluded, Thompson realized that his chance encounter with Maria Rodriguez was turning into something much more significant. He had discovered not just an exceptional soldier, but someone whose ideas and methods could influence military training for years to come. Walking back to his headquarters, Thompson reflected on the remarkable chain of events that had led to this moment. A routine inspection had revealed an extraordinary individual whose achievements were already legendary, but whose real contribution might be the knowledge and wisdom she was passing on to future generations of soldiers. The general made a mental note to fast-track the proposal review process. In a military that was constantly adapting to new challenges and threats, Maria Rodriguez represented exactly the kind of innovative thinking and practical expertise that would keep American forces effective and competitive. More importantly, she embodied the values and character that made military service honorable and meaningful. Her combination of technical excellence, moral clarity, and dedication to others provided a model for what military leadership should look like in the modern era. I would like to discuss your future career plans, the general said. Your skills and experience could be valuable in several different capacities. Maria's eyes brightened slightly at this suggestion. I am interested in continuing to serve in whatever capacity would be most beneficial, sir. As their conversation continued, General Thompson began to understand that he had encountered something truly special. Maria Rodriguez was not just an exceptional sniper, but a soldier who embodied the values and dedication that made the military effective. Her story was a reminder that extraordinary achievements often came from ordinary people who found themselves in extraordinary circumstances and chose to act with courage and skill. The morning inspection had become something much more significant than a routine evaluation. The general realized that he had just met someone whose story would stay with him for the rest of his career and whose example would inspire him to look for similar dedication and excellence in every soldier under his command.